There is a tiny circuit in your brain that literally acts like a ruthless, penny-pinching accountant. It's called the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, and it doesn't process difficulty as a feeling. It processes it as an economic transaction. Every single time you think about doing a task, this brain region calculates a willingness to pay signal, pricing out exactly how much mental energy you are required to spend. If a task feels hard, it's not because you are lazy, unmotivated, or broken. It's simply because your brain's accountant looked at the energy cost, looked at the immediate reward, and decided the price was too high. But what if you could hack that formula? What if you could legally manipulate your brain's internal currency so that doing the hardest, most tedious work suddenly felt completely effortless? Today, we are going to break down the exact neurobiology of making hard things feel incredibly easy. I'm going to show you how to completely rewire your brain's cost-benefit calculator without relying on motivation. I'm also going to reveal a strange, mathematically proven linguistic trick that literally transfers the burden of willpower out of your brain and delegates it to the physical room around you. But to understand how to use that trick, we have to talk about what happens to you on a random Tuesday at 2 p.m. You know the feeling. You are staring at your laptop screen. You just need to reply to 3 emails, or maybe fold a pile of laundry on your bed, but it feels like you are trying to physically move a mountain. You know exactly what you need to do, but your body just refuses to move. We call this the intention-behavior gap, and it is silently ruining your progress. You sit there, agonizing, wondering why a normal adult task is paralyzing you. Here is the neurological truth. Human performance is strictly capped by the finite capacity of your working memory. According to cognitive load theory, your brain can only juggle about 4 to 7 pieces of new information at the exact same time. When you look at a project, your brain sees dozens of interacting elements. The cognitive load skyrockets, exceeding that tiny limit of 7 items. When that happens, your brain throws an error code, and you experience that error code as intense frustration and procrastination. Think about the very first time you learned how to drive a car. It was utterly exhausting. You had to consciously think about the pressure of your foot on the pedal, the angle of the steering wheel, the mirrors, and the cars around you. It required massive, intense, top-down mental control. But what happens 5 years later? You drive all the way home from work, listening to a podcast, and you don't even remember the commute. It felt completely effortless because you moved that information from your limited working memory into your unlimited long-term memory. You built what neuroscientists call a schema. The multiple, complex steps of driving merged into one single automated unit. To make a hard task feel easy, we have to artificially create that same automation in our daily lives. But first, we have to deal with the pain. Why does starting a new, hard task actually feel emotionally painful? It comes down to a network in your brain called the default mode network. This is the part of your brain responsible for self-reflection, worrying, and most importantly, self-criticism. When you are staring at a difficult task, your default mode network is screaming at you, judging your abilities and predicting failure. To enter a state of flow, that magical zone where work feels totally immersive and effortless, you have to shut that network down. Neuroscientists call this transient hypofrontality. It literally means turning off the overthinking, highly critical front part of your brain. When you match the challenge of a task perfectly to your current skill level, your brain releases a cocktail of dopamine and norepinephrine. This keeps you highly alert but completely turns off the threat response in your amygdala. The mental friction vanishes. The task stops being a chore and becomes intrinsically rewarding. So, how do we systematically trigger this state when we just don't want to do the work? The first step is manipulating your brain's dopamine receptors. Your willingness to exert effort is heavily controlled by dopamine D1 receptors. Studies show that if your dopamine is depleted, you will immediately abandon high-reward goals and default to low-effort, low-reward trash. This is why you scroll social media instead of writing your report. Your baseline dopamine is so messed up by cheap digital thrills that your brain's accountant refuses to fund the expensive mental energy required for real work. You fix this through basic dopamine hygiene. You intentionally engage in low stimulation activities. Let yourself be bored for 20 minutes. Sit on the couch with no phone, no music, and no screens. It sounds agonizing, but it forcefully resets your brain's reward baseline, making the slow, effortful pursuit of your actual goals feel incredibly attractive again. The second step is called temptation bundling. Remember, your brain's accountant is looking for an immediate payoff. So, we rig the system. You link a high-effort should behavior with a high-pleasure want behavior. You only get to listen to your favorite true crime podcast while you are doing the dishes or running on the treadmill. You only get to drink that specific expensive iced coffee when you are sitting down to do your taxes. You are artificially injecting immediate dopamine into a boring task to get the accountant to approve the energy expenditure. Next, we have to instantly lower your cognitive load. We do this through microtasking, but we have to do it at the neurological level. Researchers measuring pupil dilation found that your brain physically relaxes and drops its cognitive load at what they call subtask boundaries. This means your brain needs a finish line to feel safe. If your task is clean the house, the cognitive load is infinite. Your brain rejects it. Instead, you create a microscopic subtask boundary. Your only goal is to wipe down the bathroom sink. That's it. When you finish that tiny task, you cross a boundary. Your brain gives you a microdopamine hit, which lowers the activation energy needed for the next step. It creates a success snowball. Don't tell yourself you have to write a 5-page essay. Tell yourself you just have to open a Google Doc and title it. But what happens when you make a mistake? What happens when the work pushes back? This is where your mindset physically alters your brain chemistry. People with a fixed mindset, who believe their intelligence is set in stone, show a massive punishment response in the caudate nucleus of the brain when they fail. Their brain literally punishes them for trying. But people with a growth mindset exhibit something called error positivity. Their brain produces a larger electrical spike when they make a mistake. They don't feel emotional pain. Their brain simply processes the error as a highly informative clue on how to win the game. You have to appraise stress not as a threat, but as an enhancing source of energy. When you view a frustrating moment as a challenge rather than a disaster, your endocrine system actually shifts. Your body releases adaptive cortisol, which improves cognitive flexibility instead of shutting you down. Now, we have reached the final piece of the puzzle. Even if you reset your dopamine, bundle your temptations, and microtask your day, you still have to overcome the friction of actually starting. You still have to rely on your prefrontal cortex to make a conscious, effortful decision to act. Or do you? I told you earlier there is a linguistic trick that completely bypasses your willpower. It is called an implementation intention. Most people set goals with vague desires. I will study more tonight, or I will eat healthier. These require massive amounts of top-down cognitive control to execute. Implementation intentions use a strict, non-negotiable if-then formula. If my alarm goes off at 6 a.m., then I will immediately put my feet on the floor. If I sit down at my desk, then I will put my phone in the drawer. By using this exact linguistic structure, you are entirely shifting the burden of action away from your exhausting prefrontal cortex. You are programming a trigger into the more automatic, stimulus-driven regions of your brain. You are making the decision right now, so you don't have to make it later. You have delegated the control to your environment. When the cue happens, the behavior is triggered automatically, independent of your conscious intent. You don't need willpower anymore because the environment is doing the heavy lifting for you. Making hard things feel easy is not about becoming a superhuman machine who loves pain. It is about understanding the mechanics of your own mind. It's about lowering the perceived cost of effort, protecting your working memory, and pre-programming your actions so that success becomes an automatic reflex. You don't need more discipline. You just need a better operating system. If this paradigm shift changed the way you look at your daily habits, hit the subscribe button right now, leave a like, and I'll see you in the next one.